mute the music at your end if you don't want it. So welcome to the second half of the conference. The sessions in the morning were amazing, and I'm sure that the last two sessions we have, which one is a workshop on storyline. I mean, we have the wizard here to take us through, and then we have our keynote. So I was just asking people, what did you have for lunch? Since we just came back from lunch, what did you have for lunch? Just put it in the chat. Oh, I like this Gary and sugar mixed with cold water. Some people here will not understand that this is an African, well, I wouldn't say it's a staple, but when the weather is super hot, this is something that you really want to take. It's like you have your cereal. Gari is made from cassava. You put it in water and add some ice and put sugar. At times you add some groundnuts. It's amazing. So Kule, thanks for sharing that. So Andreja, tuna and couscous. Oh my, that's nice. So it's morning. Hannah, where are you joining from? Coffee and cold water? Coffee and toast. I always like toast. So we have flat mignon. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to Google it. Baked chicken and potatoes. Oh my, now I feel so hungry because I didn't have the chance to go and have lunch. I'll probably do when Chris is on. Muffin for breakfast. Yeah, that's people from US. Rice and stew with meat and soft drinks. Oh, I'm an egg coffee. Oh, amazing. Great. So thank you all for sharing what you ate for lunch. Chris is here. So I'm going to leave you to introduce yourself the best way you want to be remembered. So I'll hand over to you. Thank you. Let's show some love to Chris with the react button with sound and some emojis. Great. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Oyindamola, for that warm welcome and for everything that you've done today, putting on this conference. You know, when you told me what the spirit of this event was all about, being inclusive and being free and, you know, just being as super helpful and wide-reaching, a wide breadth of L&D, you know, I just had to be a part of that. So really grateful for you to extend this invite to me. And just kind of checking out, you know, looks like we've got over 50 people already in the room. That's amazing. Hopefully plenty of Storyline fans with us. That's going to be our focus for today. So we're going to be spending about 35 minutes together. And I'm going to be spending that time delivering a workshop session. So let me just try and get things working here. Always the way, trying to get things technically working as they should be. Okay, cool. So yeah, we're going to be working in Articulate Storyline, and yeah, so this is going to be a creative workshop session, and I'm hopefully going to show you some things that perhaps you've not seen before, that you'll take away some useful ideas, some useful ways of working in Articulate Storyline that you may be able to work with in your own projects. So I have a link to the starter file that you're seeing on screen right now. I did have that in the chat a second ago, but I'll just go ahead and pop that back in for you and just give you a second or two just to go ahead and grab that file. If you'd rather just, you know, watch along and soak in the knowledge and not follow, that's absolutely fine. You can do that, or feel free to obviously come back, watch the recording and follow along in, you know, when you have the time to do so. I should mention as well that this link that I've just shared with you is something of a conference exclusive download, as it were. In the next day or so, I'm going to be moving this over to the Discover e-learning website, and the intention is for this to become part of a much bigger course. So today is something of a taster for much bigger things to come, as it were. So I'm going to, as I say, try and cover as much ground as I can in the time that we have with us today. Okay, so we are, of course, quite a large group. So that does mean, in terms of, you know, running this as a workshop, that I'm not going to be able to stop and help everybody if you run into trouble, unfortunately. I will do my best to keep a good pace throughout. And of course, as I mentioned, you can come back, review the recording if there's perhaps a misstep along the way. And I'll pause for an occasional temperature check. I really like that in this interface, we've got all these sound effects going on. I haven't even figured out how to do that myself yet. I've got to really try and figure this out. So it'd be great to see those emojis and sound effects flying around. So is the file also available for download on Storyline's website? No, it's not on. It's just on the. It's like a OneDrive folder link that I've shared with you. So hopefully there's no issues with you grabbing that. Yeah, go ahead and grab it now. It'll be available for the next 24, 48 hours as well. But as I say, the intention is to get this moved across in the next day or two. Okay, so with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so what I'd like to do is just have an initial recce of the file and see what we've got going on in terms of the initial starting point for the project that you all have hopefully up on your screen as well. So we have just to mention, just off the bat, actually, that when you open the project, you might get a warning about some missing font files. I've used two specific fonts just up here to, some of my favorite kind of headline font and handwriting font. These are Google fonts, so they're freely downloadable, freely licensed from Google. But if you prefer to just swap them in with your preferred choice of font, that's not going to in any way impact what's going on in today's workshop, in today's project. So on the base layer, you'll notice that I've already created for us a game board here, and you can see the theme going on. If we have any Legend of Zelda fans in the room right now, go ahead and throw into the chat your favorite or your best Legend of Zelda emoji, if you can find one. And yeah, that's going to be the focus of what we are going to be covering during today's session. And you'll see that I provided a player token, which is this chicken. So he's going to be able to move around the board. And we're going to see how we can dynamically alter the chicken's position in relation to the dice rolls that are that will be taking place by the user as they play the game. So we've got a 1280 by 720 project. You'll also notice in the bottom right-hand corner here that there's also two custom slide layers, one of which, as you can see here, is the dice roll timeline. So in effect, what we're going to do is create a sequence on this timeline that's effectively going to be our dice roll that we can repeat. So we can effectively play this layer again as many times as we wish, every time the user goes ahead and rolls the dice once again to go on their next move. And that will effectively play on that timeline. And we've also got, or I've also put together some optional sound effect files. There they are. I wonder where they've gone for a second there. They're there if we want to go ahead and put those in, if we have time to do so in a little bit as well. If you also take a look in the story view, so just click onto the story view tab in the top left corner there, you also see that there is a slide here with this is a slide that's come straight from the Articulate Storyline template for their new JavaScript APIs. This effectively shows a specific feature that's possible with the API to control an object animating from one position to another based on a destination area, a destination element, as it were. And I'm going to be using that today to show how we can use that to control our token going around the game board. Okay, so let's get started by building up our project. And first thing I'm going to do is set up our dice. And to set up the dice, I'm going to be using essentially one image, one object for the dice itself, and create 6 unique individual states for the sides of the dice that may be rolled, as it were. So I'll just go ahead and take one of the existing dice images here that I've got set up on the left-hand side, and that will be my main dice. I might just move this down just a little bit further down on the timeline here and rename that to red dice. And then if you click on the states tab just here next to where you've got timeline, I just ran ahead and renamed that object to red dice. And then if you go ahead and click on the states tab with the dice selected, of course, you can then click on the edit states button. And now we are creating, or we're in the state editor view for the dice object in order to create the 6 sides. So what I'd like you to do is just here where we've got the options to create or duplicate the state that we've currently got selected. If you just go ahead and click on this button, and we want to just go ahead and duplicate the state 6 times and just rename these to the numbers. So we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then what we need to do is just replace the image that is set in the state for the dice within each of those individual states. Now, we could theoretically copy and paste each one of these images in, but a much quicker way to do that would be to right click on the dice, just to remind here that I've got state 1 selected here as I'm doing this. So I'm right clicking on the dice, and then I'm going to select replace picture from media library. So in effect, those dice images that are provided are in the project, in the storyline files media library. So we can go ahead and select those and use those and replace them this way. So right click, replace with media library, and then you'll find when the media library window pops up here is our red dice images that we can select from. So we just need to select number 1, for example, and then click replace image, and then that goes ahead and puts it into place like that. So just go ahead and repeat that same step for each of the other states for the dice. And just to remind you, I will be doing just a brief, quick temperature check as I go along, sort of at key stages of today's workshop. But just in the interest of time and trying to get in as much knowledge, as much as I can, I'm going to pick up on questions towards the end of the workshop. Okay, so we can now click on the done. The done button once we've done that, and then if you hover your mouse over each of those states, you should see their images change as you hover your mouse over each, like so. And we could go ahead and set up a hover state as well for the dice. So if you go ahead and click on the normal state here and click the duplicate state once again and just type hover, so that's effectively a built-in state for within Articulate Storyline that will take care of the hover state for us. And all I want to do with that dynamic state, as you can see, it's denoted by this kind of lightning symbol that you have here in the top left corner. All I want to do with that is just have it be perhaps a little bit brighter, so it just kind of glows when the user hovers their mouse over the state. And what's going to be really nice about that as well is that even if our custom state has changed to another number, for example, to the number 3, because what we've done is effectively just applied a image filter, as it were, to that normal state, it will make sure it will apply the same image, as it were, even when we're hovering over any one of those other custom states. So you'll see that in action as we go forward. Okay, so with that in place, you can now just go ahead and remove these other dice images from the left-hand side just to tidy up our timeline a little bit there. Okay, so now we're going to start building up our dice animation sequence on the dice roll timeline layer. So you can see that what I've already got in place for us are 2 cups, essentially going to be used as dice rolling cups for the dice to drop into, to shake, and then to be rolled out. And I've got one in an upright position and one in a sideways position, essentially ready for us to work with. And what you'll see is if you go ahead and show and hide any of these individual elements on the timeline, is that I've separated the image by the back of the cup, sort of like the background of the cup, and the front of the cup itself. So we're going to be able to use that as part of a masking technique for when the dice drops into the cup, so that effectively it looks like the dice is actually going in as opposed to, going behind the cup or sitting in front of the cup. So let's go ahead and create a group for using those images to work with to set up our animations. So I'm going to click on the cup front image here on the timeline, and then I'm going to hold the shift key in order to also select the back image. So by doing that, you should see that you now have those two images selected on your slide here. And then if you just right click on any perimeter or any of these kind of bounding corner boxes for any of the images, and then select group, and that will create a grouped image of those two objects together. That's going to make it easy for us to move that around and animate on the slide, etc. So I want to move this into place effectively where the cup is, where the cup's going to animate to, as it were. So I just want it to be in sort of this position, so it's slightly covering the background of our rules here. Maybe just a little bit more to the left, perhaps. There we go. And let's rename the group as well, so we can capture this in our triggers panel nice and easily. So this is the cup bottom group. Cool. Okay, so let's now add a transition, or rather a transition in for that cup group when the timeline starts. So if we come over to the animations panel up in the top left here, so I've clicked on the animations tab just here, and then I'm going to apply an entrance animation in order to have the cup fly in from the bottom. So that transition in effect is going to take care of the animation of the cup moving into position for us. So I could have, set that up as a animation path if I wanted to. You could do that as well if you wanted to, but this effectively just frees up a little bit of space on screen. And also you can see in the bottom left-hand corner there that I can see the transition being applied to that group as well. So I have a good visual representation of that on the slide by doing so. Okay, so we're transitioning or we're flying in the cup over 0.75 seconds. So now what I'm going to do is create a motion path for the dice to go into the cup once the cup has appeared and materialized on the slide. So I'm going to click on the Add Motion Path button, which you'll find up here, again, under the Animation tab. And we have a few different options, as you can see, for the different types of movements that we can set up in Articulate Storyline. So I think I'm going to go for curve and create something of an exaggerated lift and drop for the dice to go into the cup. So I need to click where I want the curve animation to begin. So that's going to be central to the image itself. So let's go ahead and click, and then just go ahead and create a number of clicks in order to bring the dice into position into the cup like so. So you can see when we set up animation path using a motion path in Articulate Storyline, the storyline goes ahead and creates the trigger position for the dice and effectively has that set for when the timeline starts. So I don't want that to happen when the timeline starts. I instead want it to happen when the timeline reaches the 1 second mark. So we have the dice, we have the cup animating onto the slide, and then the dice is going to move into position. Now, this is where the masking technique is going to come into play, because if we go ahead and preview this, so what we'll need to do is come over to the start layer, and then let's click creating new trigger to show the layer of dice roll timeline when the timeline starts on this slide, just so that we can effectively see the animation take place immediately when we preview the slide. So if we go ahead and preview what's happening so far, okay, here we go. So cup comes in, and then the dice moves into position. But of course, as you can see, it's positioned in the front of the dice in the timeline. So we're not getting that effect of the dice moving into the cup. So let's speed things up actually for that movement into the cup as well, because I think right now it's set to 2 seconds. Let's maybe change that to 0.75 seconds instead. Okay, so To set up the front of the dice to act as a mask as that animation is taking place, what we'll do is open up the group that we've just created and then click onto the cup front image here, and then press Control-C on your keyboard, and then do Control-Shift-D, which is going to create a duplicate of that image. Now, we don't want the image to be in the group. We want to bring it out of the group. I'm not sure if we can drag this. Actually, I'll have to cut and paste it. So with the group unselected, let's click on the red dice and then do Control-Shift-D. And now you can see that we've now got that duplicate of the cup front, and it needs to be in front of our red dice when the movement is taking place. So we don't want that image to effectively be there the whole time. Otherwise, it's obviously just going to be there static throughout the animation that's taking place. So instead, I'm going to drag the position of when this is in place to when the cup group animation onto the slide has completed. So it could be at the 1 second mark, for example. So if we now preview, we should see. There we go. Okay, so let's now apply a emphasis animation onto the cup to simulate the shaking of the cup itself. So what we can do to create that is use the emphasis animations built into Articulate Storyline. So we will click onto the cup group on the layer here, and then add an emphasis animation from the emphasis animation panel that you can find here under the animations tab. So just go ahead and click and add a shake animation. So again, as you can see, when we go ahead and create that, we have some options about how long the animation lasts. I might want it to last for 1 second, for example, and let's have a high shake, as it were, a quite heavy shake of the dice, as much as Storyline will give us. And then over here, you can see that the trigger for when that emphasis animation is going to play is currently set to when the user clicks on the group, or rather clicks on the cup. So of course we don't want that. We want to have it in our sequence, as it were. So we know that our dice is going to move into position in, I believe it was 1 second dice set. So we just need to go ahead and change that to when the dice is moved into position. Let me just remind myself what I set that to, actually. So it moves along when it's 1 second in, and then it's 0.75 seconds of animation. So let's maybe emphasize when the timeline reaches 2 seconds. So that will create the shake of the dice. And then I'm going to have the cup and the dice move away in order to then bring in our side dice movement on the side of the timeline. So let's create a. Should we use a transition out or an animation path to do that? I wonder. Let's transition out, actually. So let's create an exit animation of fly out, and then we'll position the group when that transition happens at the 3 second mark. So that gives enough time for the shake animation to take place. And then what we want to do is, because we'll be able to see the dice still in place, and I don't necessarily want to just move the dice for the sake of moving it when we can't actually see it. So what we can do instead is we can use a trigger to change the state of the dice itself, the red dice, to hidden when the timeline reaches the 3 second mark. So effectively, that's just going to happen at the moment where we are going to have everything transition away. So if you want to go ahead and preview the project now, and you should see that sequence play out on the timeline. Oh, I'll tell you what I've done there. I've emphasized the wrong thing, clearly. So I've applied the emphasis animation to cup group. Oh, cup bottom group. Okay. Oh, I see what's happened. So I've still got my mask in place when the shake is taking place at the 2-second mark. So let's just go ahead and make that mask disappear so that it's only there for the period when the animation is taking place. So let's go ahead and preview that now. Set red dice to hidden when the timeline reaches 3 seconds. What's happened there? 0.75 seconds. It's moved the red dice at the 1 second mark. Set red dice to hidden. Let's try changing that to 2. Just wondering why it suddenly appeared again. Okay, must have been a mistiming of my triggers there on the layer itself, but changing the time of the animation being hidden to 2 seconds seems to resolve that. So I've got it when the emphasis starts rather than when the emphasis finishes. So that in effect has created our movement there, and that's working as I want it to. So now we're ready to bring in our second cup here to come along and roll the dice onto the board. So we want to go ahead and group these together once again. So right clicking, or rather selecting both of those images on the timeline for the side cup there, right click, group, and create a group. And then let's call this cup side GRP. And then I'm going to have this transition in at the 4 second mark with a fly in from the right animation. And let's put this into position where I want it to come in. So I'm going to have this overlay, and let's have this. We want to make sure that it's underneath the red dice as well. So having the group there just directly below the red dice, coming in at the 4 second mark, flying into position. And I want to do the same thing again, i.e. let's just hide that bottom group there just for a second so we can see what we're doing. Okay, so I just want to have the same masking effect going on for the dice being rolled out of the cup. So once again, I'm going to select the cup side front image from inside the group, and I'm going to Control C and Control Shift D in order to make that visible. And I don't want it to be in the group. I want it to be Control Shift D. There we go. So I just want it to be here if in front of the dice image there. And it needs to be visible at the moment where, let's maybe extend this out a little bit. So it needs to be at the moment where the transition has completed. So now I want to move the dice from inside the cup over to be in the area where effectively it's being rolled. So I'm going to create a second animation path now for the dice, and we're going to roll this out. Again, I'll use a curve animation here, and we'll move it from inside the cup and bring it roughly to the same starting position. If you can get as close as you can to the center of the dice, where it is in the starting point, like so. So there we go. That looks good to me. And it's gone ahead and created our trigger for that movement. Again, it's wanting to do it when the timeline starts, but I actually want it to move at the 4.75 second mark. So let's change that to when the timeline reaches 4.75. Okay, so if I go ahead and bring everything back and preview the slide, we should see that sequence now fully in place on the timeline. Oh, hang on. We're missing something vital for the dice to actually be visible. What have I done wrong here? Oh, I haven't actually created my change states of the red dice to normal when the timeline reaches 4.75 seconds. And we'll do that before the dice moves. Needs to be a little bit quicker, of course. I forgot to look at my settings there. So let's change that to 0.75 or 0.5 so it's nice and quick. But that in effect is working, and that is our dice animation all set up on that timeline to work with. So what I want to happen, of course, is not for the dice to always be the same number. That would be, of course, really boring, really dull and detrimental to the game experience. So what I want to happen is for the dice number to change at the moment where the dice roll is taking place. So to achieve that, what I'm going to do is create a trigger in the project here. I'm not going to create a trigger, I beg your pardon. I'm going to create a variable. So I'm clicking up here where we have the triggers panel, and I'm going to click on this button right here to open up the Manage Project Variables window in Articulate Storyline. And right now we don't have anything going on in the project, but that's going to change. I'm going to go ahead and create my dice underscore number variable, and that's going to be a number type variable in Storyline. Now you can see when we set up number variables, sorry, I'm flying around here. When we set up number variables in Articulate Storyline, we can set the default value of that variable, as well as if we want to, we could set it to a random number. So if you wanted the dice to have a random starting point, you can do that, of course. I'm just going to keep it as is. Like, for example, I know that I've selected the number 4 as my normal state for my dice. So that's going to be my dice number to begin with. So the default value will be number 4. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a trigger to adjust the variable of the dice number. We can see that what we have the ability to do in Articulate Storyline is set a specific number value for that variable, as well as also creating or setting up a random number. So we can say that we want that number to be set between 1 and 6. So effectively create that random selection for the dice roll for us. And we want that to happen when the timeline reaches 4.75 seconds, i.e. just before our motion path begins. So we can actually go ahead and disable or remove that normal state change now, because we're going to have the dice number take care of the change state for us. So that's just changing a variable at this moment in time. So that's not affecting our dice. So what we need to do is create our triggers that will change the state of the dice based on that variable number changing at that moment in time on the timeline. So let's create our triggers in order to do that. So we'll say change the state of the red dice to the state of 1 when the timeline reaches 4.75. And that we want that to happen if the condition of dice number is equal to 1. And it's important that we have that trigger set beneath when the variable actually changes. So we want the variable to change, and then the state is going to change based on what that new variable value is set to. So let's go ahead and duplicate this trigger now and set up our triggers for each of those states. And it's all happening at that same time on the timeline, 1 through 6, like so. Okay, so just checking through everything that's happening in a sequence. All of that animation is taking place, but before the user actually sees the dice, what's going to happen is that the first thing that's happening at 4.75 seconds is that the dice number is going to be changed by Storyline, and then we've got our triggers in place in order to update the state of the dice image based on what that new number is. So if you go ahead and preview the project now, and we'll see that all happening in action. And there we go. So I've now got a brand new number. Obviously, what was selected by the random selection there was the number 6, and we've now rolled a number 6 onto the board. So that's happening when the timeline starts at this current moment in time, but we can make that interactive. We can make that a looping sequence by doing this instead. So we're still going to have show the layer dice roll when the timeline starts. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the dice roll timeline pause when the timeline starts. So I'm going to create a trigger here to pause the timeline of this layer when the timeline starts on this layer. So that in effect just kind of keeps things paused. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a trigger to resume the timeline on this layer when the user clicks on the dice. And then that will play the whole sequence through. And then that gives the ability to actually, no, what we should do is we'll create, rather than using play timeline, we'll have it play from the starting point of the timeline, so that then allows us to create the loop. So resume timeline when the user clicks. Let's change that to jump to time on this layer to the time of, let's go for 0.1, just because I think if I go to 0.0, it's going to potentially pause again. 0.1 on this layer when the user clicks the red dice. And importantly, make sure to play the timeline so that the whole thing plays through. So now what we should be able to see when we preview the slide this time round is we get to see the dice that's on the screen to begin with, and we can interact and hover over the dice, as you can see. But it's actually me clicking on the dice now that makes the roll take place. And there's our next number. Oh, I need to animate the cup away, of course. But what you should now see is if you go ahead and click on that dice again, you've now got that sequential repeating timeline action that can be used and triggered from other slides, from other areas as we progress and move through the rest of the project. Superb. So if I maybe just take a brief pause here and come back so I can see you all. Where are you? Because I'm realizing, good grief, we are absolutely flying through the time. And I know that you've got the keynote coming up at 3 o'clock. Isn't that right, Yindamola? I don't know if you're still there.
Yes.
Okay. So getting into the rest of the process, this is probably actually a good point to actually take stock, take a breather, and take in any questions and see how people have been getting on if you've been following along. And as I've mentioned, this is kind of a teaser for a much bigger workshop, and that's going to be available on the Discover eLearning website, discoverylearning.com. So a lot of the technicalities of building the board game, you'll be able to jump onto that course when that's available, coming very, very soon. So I hope you've enjoyed at least this kind of moment that I've had to work through this with you all. So let me just see anything that I can pick out.
Yes, it's been packed with so much value. I can see people already putting in the chat that they'll have to watch the replay, which is going to be made available. I mean, it's a lot to learn in a short time. So I really look forward to the workshop that you're having at Discovery Learning. Yeah,
discoverelearning.com. Let me show you. I think I've got this up on my screen as well. There we go. So discoverylearning.com. And you'll see as well that this is kind of one of a number of free workshop events that I'm planning to run as part of an ongoing series, as it were. So you can see that we actually have another workshop coming up next Friday, and that's going to cover animating illustrated characters in Storyline 360 using JavaScript, using GSAP, and that's going to be a free event as well. So I hope that there might be some people attending today that might want to come along and experience that as well. And lots of details about the workshops and training events that I run as part of my business, as part of what we do at Discovery Learning. That's all available on the website as well.
Great. I'll definitely encourage people to sign up for that free learning. You've seen a taste of what you can learn from Chris, so you want to take advantage of that opportunity, guys. We have about 4 minutes before the end of this session. Does anyone have a question for Chris at this point?
I think there were some things coming in.
Can see some comments in the chat. Great, and great. This was great. The animation works, but the number is always the same. We need to mess around with it more. Definitely, you need more time to do that. There's a question from Therese. Is there a link for the free Storyline Magic? I mean, I think it's the session. You want to put that in the chat for people to see. And quality.
Yeah, I think this session, I think you'll be putting that onto YouTube. Is that right, Namola? And I'll make sure to share that. If you follow me on LinkedIn, if you're not already doing so, I always post things like this and tips and tricks for Storyline as well for other developers. So it'd be great to include some clips from today. And yeah, it'll be an ongoing series, definitely, because there's so much that we can cover when it comes to building board games.
Absolutely.
So
great, guys. If you go to the Elite Hub website, the page where you saw the speaker schedule, the speaker session schedule, you'll see. If you click on all the speakers, you'll be able to get to their LinkedIn profiles from there. So ensure to connect with all of them. And of course, Chris, if you're interested in the Storyline workshop coming up, make sure you connect with Chris. And you could also put your LinkedIn profile in this session here. This is something we did earlier today. I forgot to mention. Please, everyone, feel free to put in your LinkedIn profile in the chat now. Let's connect with one another. And I'm going to quickly also share the reflection tree that we've been using all day. On the right corner, towards the bottom on the right side, you're going to see the section for Chris, where you just put in your takeaway from the session. And it's also a way for you to catch up on all the other sessions that have happened earlier today. Picture is going to load in soon. So just by Chris, by the name, you see, you can take in notes and change the color to whatever color of your choice. Okay, not that, this one. Yeah. So you can just click on any note and duplicate any blank note, duplicate it, right click and duplicate and change the color to whatever color you want. And put in your reflections just by Chris's name. I think the tree is still loading. Then you'll be able to appreciate what the reflection tree looks like. Put in your takeaway from this session, guys. And on the right side also, you would see QR codes that will lead you to all our pages, Instagram, LinkedIn, Discord community if you want to join, and an opportunity to help us sustain future events, because these events are free. We do regular workshops, regular webinars, and of course this conference, it's all free. So be in touch with those QR codes. I can't see anything now. I think it's loading. Oh, great. People are putting in their LinkedIn profiles. Let's connect with one another. So this session is about to end now. What we usually do, I'll give us like a minute or two to connect and use those links. What we usually do is to end a session, so everybody will be kicked out. The next session, which is the last one for today, is the keynote session by Andrew. So if we don't leave the room now, this session won't be recorded individually, and we want that to happen. So when I end the session, you'll be able to come in immediately. I'll just give us a minute or two, explore the LinkedIn profiles and connect with people. And again, if you are signed up to Butter, you're going to receive the recap of this session as well. You'll be able to see the charts, see the videos, the session recording You won't be able to download, but you'll be able to watch it before it goes away. And then you'll also be able to have access to all the chat and all. So I'm going to end the session now so that we can come back. So let's show some love to Chris. Use the react button, to use the soundboard, the emojis. Let's show some love. Let's show our appreciation for this session. It's been really, really amazing.
Thanks so much.
Welcome.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's been an amazing session. So, okay, the the tree is just, coming up now. So you can all just put in your reflections. I can't find, okay, the QR codes are appearing, so you can, you're going to see when the recap comes, you have access to all these resources, and then you can explore them.